Hey YouTube friends, Brody Man here, the Vintage Nerd. Just a quick disclaimer before we get into this video. There is a bit of a time jump from when I started shooting this video to when I actually finished it. I will get into more detail about why that is right before the time jump, but just keep that in mind. Alright guys, let's carry on. Last video we talked about the planning for the All Might custom figure I'm going to be doing on top of this Ultimate Green Goblin Build-A-Figure. I figured this time around we would just actually start getting into the customizing, so figured for the first phase I would go ahead and break out the Dremel here and start taking off all these spikes and extra pieces that obviously All Might doesn't have on his body. And I'll keep it short, we'll just get right into it, guys. Okay, so you can see that I got the bulk of the first arm there, the left arm, done. As I started removing the spikes, you know, I kind of start to slow down as I get to the closer to the actual bare arm, being because I want to try to preserve as much of that muscle definition that they sculpted in there for us already. I want to try to preserve that. It just makes a little bit less work for us to have to go back and do later. I do need to get these spikes completely removed, so there'll be inverted, more like indentations when I'm done, but I am going to kind of slow down just a little bit so I make sure that I don't start chipping away at stuff that I actually want to keep. So I'm just going to make more work for myself later. Okay, so that one's pretty close to done. I think I'll probably just get like a coarse sandpaper and finish that one off by hand. That way, like I said, I can try to maintain as much of the major muscle definition points as I can without removing too much detail. Let's go ahead and start working. We'll just do the other shoulder. Let's see. Second shoulder is looking pretty good. A little bit more we can do there. Okay. Second shoulder is about done there. Looks pretty good. Bears mentioning, guys, I wear glasses. I've been wearing glasses since I was in like second grade. If you don't wear glasses regularly, do not forget to put on some goggles when doing Dremel work. You know, when you're dremeling it down, this thing's spinning so fast, it's literally sanding it down and melting the plastic at the same time. So there are like hot chunks of plastic flying up at your face. You know, it's gonna happen. You can't avoid it, but really the most important thing is you don't want that stuff to get in your eyes, jack yourself up. So make sure you invest in even just a cheap pair of safety goggles, and you slap those bad boys on before you start doing any of this type of work. See if I can't get myself a better view here of what I'm doing. I don't know if that's giving you guys a better view, but it's helping me out a little bit, so Okay, so far so good. Both shoulders. Got one forearm and elbow done. I just got one more of those to do. And we'll see what we'll get into next. Let's see. Okay. Spikes are pretty much all removed on the torso. Maybe a little bit more refining to be done there. Let's see. I think I'm gonna hold off there for now. See what I can get into next in just a minute. Okay, so I think we're gonna put a pin in it right there. Here's very briefly and specifically why that's going to be the case. So as I explained to you guys before, I'm a pretty busy guy, you know, with multiple jobs, lots of stuff going on. I was hoping that as I was working on the all-might figure that I was going to be able to just kind of record every step of the way for anybody that was curious about it, because I know how I get about stuff like that. I always want to see how things are done. Unfortunately, got away from me in a way where I just kind of would start working on it when I had time to do it. And I didn't always think to set up the camera. Sometimes I just wouldn't even do it at all. So I would just maybe take a photo here or there as things were coming along. And, you know, also not to mention, and, you know, I'm sure the person who commissioned me will testify to this, this process has just been taking a lot longer than I would have expected. There was just a lot more to this than I initially realized, amongst being, you know, the biggest being the original head sculpt, you know, just kind of perfecting that look to their liking. You know, I want them to like it, I want to like it, so it's just been a lot of work. So, you know, I'm kind of showing you some photos here, you know, of things that I did along the way. Essentially, I did eventually sand away all the bits and pieces, and then once all that sanding was done, it moved on to some sculpting the I don't know what you would call them, kind of like the little fins on the forearms, things like that, sculpting the belt, you know, just like little minor things to clean up the sculpt and bring it where we needed it. And then ultimately the big sculpting jobs to this point were sculpting the feet and sculpting the hands. Oh boy, sculpting those hands was so much fun, let me tell you guys. But, you know, hey, we got through it. So once all the sculpting was done, I moved on to some painting on the body. So eventually, you know, we did some priming, pre-shading, all that other good stuff. Lots of airbrushing involved here. Basically airbrushed it to the point where we got all of the shading and highlighting that we wanted. And then I moved on to some brush detail, which would be all the lines on the suit, you know, and all that other stuff. So let me just kind of bring you to current right about now. All right, so this is what All Might looks like right now. You'll see that he's missing his hands and his feet. Reason for that being is those are both curing as we speak, and I'm going to be painting those, and then he'll have a fully assembled body from the neck down. Let me just grab him really quick so you can kind of get a better look at what's going on here. You know, there's a lot going on here. I don't even really know where to start. This has kind of been a little bit of a passion project for me. What would happen is I would work on a piece, and then I'd end up determining that, you know, oh, you know what, this could look better, or I think this would be a better thing, and I just kind of would keep redoing elements of it. And you know, I got to this point where he was so detailed that I was just like, man, you know, I really think he's coming out pretty exceptional. There's obviously, if you're looking very closely, there's some detailing, little things that need to be cleaned up. You know, just kind of figure gets a little dinged up here and there between processes. So I definitely am going to be touching them up with paint. You can see in areas like this, there's a little bit of touch up to be done there. You know, but ultimately what it comes down to, guys, is if you ever made a custom figure, or if you ever owned a custom figure, you know, because it's not painted with, you know, those lucrative factory paints that they use overseas, these figures are just prone to chipping and to scraping. try as you may to put coats of like varnish on it, or to prime it, it's just really hard, especially on hinges, to not have paint rub. It's really hard to get away from it. I'm going to do what I can to make sure we avoid paint rub in areas like this, but I can only do so much. The figure is basically not made to be played with like a standard toy. You kind of want to find the pose you want them to be in, and then you leave them in that pose for the most part. You move them around here and there eventually. You can see right there the fins. I had to reprime those because I wasn't happy with the way the yellowing was coming out there, so I'm going to repaint the fins. The belt's got some touching up to be done, but all in all, I feel like this guy's coming out pretty good. The line detail is pretty clean. Since I started working on this figure, I have seen other people who have made customs, maybe like a handful, 2 or 3, and hey, I think everybody in their own way just does a bang up job. Like kudos to anybody who takes on projects like this, because they just kind of have more and more challenges as you move along, and it's a lot of fortitude just to get through a thing and to call it finished. So I applaud all of them. One thing that I've been noticing on all of the figures that I've been seeing made so far is, and this is just my humble opinion, it's nothing against theirs at all, is just I don't see the proportions that I would like to see in this figure. I don't really watch My Hero Academia. I only know of it lightly, so I'm only working off of so many reference pictures, and I feel like what that brings to the table for me, not having a personal tie to the franchise, is it allows me to just kind of look at exactly what I see on the page and try to replicate that. I feel like at this point right now, this All Might is very loyal to the proportions of the figure, or the character rather, that you see on the show. Another direction I'm seeing people going, and maybe I'm missing something here, is I'm seeing a lot of people using like heavy cell shaded shading on the figure. So like they're cutting in really hard just black tones on like half of the figure, and it really just kind of gives it that anime style shading. It's a really cool artistic touch. It's not what I'm going for. I hope that's gonna ultimately be okay. I hope that's not what my client's looking for. She's never really mentioned anything about that, but that's not the direction we're going here. I opted instead for more of the Zenthial shading method that you see done on custom figures, where we kind of have the lighter colors on the top where like the muscles are raised or the bones are raised, and then we have darker colors coming under things like the pecs and the abs, so it's very subtle but very effective, again, in my opinion. So this is where we are at so far. His body is essentially done. Once I finish those feet and hands, I'm going to plug those in and he's going to be good to go there. So I'm on to the next part of this figure, which has been the most challenging, and that has been getting let me get this off here. That has been getting as loyal of a head sculpt as I can get. So I am using as a base the original Ultimate Green Goblin head that came with the figure. My reasoning for that was, hey, this peg's already set up to plug into the body, so it's just kind of like a no-brainer. I basically shaved it down to the point where there was no detail left on it, and now I'm going over it with some clay, and I'm doing just a completely free sculpt. I did have an idea what I was going to do with this head at some point, and I showed it to my client, and she wasn't happy with it, in the sense that the head sculpt I was going with at the time, she just said that smile's not right. And hey, that's perfectly fine critique. Like, she's got to be happy. And she said, like, in order for this figure to come together, that smile, it's gonna sell him. Like, that's gonna tell you that's All Might. So like, that's kind of been the basis of my sculpt, is I'm trying to get that smile just right, and it's so much harder than I would have thought it was gonna be. I can't tell you how many times I've come back, sculpted, resculpted, resculpted, and resculpted, and resculpted one more time, and just said, like, all right, I'm kind of getting there. I can tell you I'm ultimately going to probably end up resculpting his smile again, try to get his eyebrows right. He's got a lot, going on, profile, wise. He's got very hard angles on his face, very typical of an anime character, but because those angles are so hard, it also makes it very specific to the eye. Like, the eye wants to see those shapes come together exactly the right way to form the face. And I'm not really sure if we're quite there yet. I'm gonna end up taking some pictures and sending those to her of where we're at so far, and getting some critiques from her, what she wants to see me do. Obviously, after the face is done, I need to sculpt the hair rather, and then I'm gonna probably sculpt separately the little, I don't know what they're called, the little hair bangs that poke up out of his head, and then those will just plug in, you know, via a little peg or something, maybe even a magnet. But I think those should definitely be separated. So if you're ever moving the figure around or shipping the figure, you know, run the risk of it breaking. They're already off. You just need to plug them in. So that's the All Might update. I figured I'd just make a quick video. Well, this isn't really quick anymore, is it? I just figured I'd make a video so you guys can see where we're at. It really kind of surprised me when I posted the initial All Might video, how many views and likes and questions it had. It kind of turned into the most watched video on the channel when you know, it wasn't even something I was expecting. You know, it's a very popular franchise, so I figured, hey, you know what, these people want an update, let me get them an update. So this is where All Might's at so far. Hopefully the next video will be a completed figure. Hopefully our client is very happy. And again, I apologize for the long wait. She's been super cool about it and very understanding. But you know, we're old friends, so I you know, would almost expect nothing less. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for watching. That's All Might so far. I will catch you on the next one. Later.